Hello everyone, hope that you all are doing good. So today we'll learn how to make REST APIs. So there were a lot of comments how to use particular project as a REST project, how we can convert the already made projects, already covered projects in the previous videos to hit those endpoints through Postman. So I decided let's first discuss how you can make REST APIs, and then in the next video we can convert already existing projects to the REST projects, right? So here we'll be learning how you can make two levels of REST APIs. First one would be like a simple REST API where no database connection is being required. And then the second one would be with the database, right? How we can generate the formulated kind of a response for the user, right? But before jumping into the video, I would like to request you, if you gain some knowledge out of my videos, please like, share and comment on the videos. Your feedbacks and queries would be addressed by me surely. And if new to the channel, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon. So I got a feedback that I should not only explain the code, also write it on the videos, right? When I'm making a video, I should write the code as well. So previously what I was trying, that I made project and was trying to explain you on the videos. Now I'll be writing the code as well. So let's start by going to the IDE. We are on the IDE. Let's make a new project, right? So let's click on file and let's go for new project, and then let's select the Spring Starter project, REST API, right? REST API example, right? So package is correct, package is okay, com.rest.implementation, Java 8 version. Let's go next. So here we'll be implementing a first level of API where we'll not be requiring any database connection, but in the second level we'll be requiring database connection. So I'll select the database dependency, right? So let me select the database dependency and it's Postgres. I'll be using Postgres database for this. Then we need the Spring Data JPA, as we'll be using the connection with the database in a JPA way, so we need Spring Data JPA as well. Then the Spring Starter package, that is Spring Web, and I guess nothing else, right? So we need these three dependencies, right? So let me finish. So now my project is ready, right? So now what we can see here is we have one package of main class, right? So this is my main class here. So what we'll be doing is, as I said, that we'll be making a REST API with no database connection. So first level would be REST API with no database connection. So this is my pom.xml, right? So here you can see that we have the Spring Data JPA dependency, then Spring Web dependency, and then Postgres dependency. So right now we don't need these dependencies, right? So let me comment these dependencies, right? So I don't need these dependencies. So let me now start by writing the controller code, right? So the controller code can be written in the main class as well, and also you can define a separate package for your controller. So I prefer that I make a separate package for controllers, as the understanding of the person is clear that all the APIs, all the controller work has been done in the controller package only. But I'll tell you that how you can write your API in the main class as well. So let me write an API here. But before writing the API to the main class, you have to mark the main class as a REST controller. So you have to say REST controller, right? So you have to mark your main class as REST controller, then only you can write your APIs here, right? So now let me expose a method here by saying get mapping, right? So you'll get mapping, and I'll say a basic dependency. I can say, let me say welcome, right? And now let me define a method, right? So I'll say public string welcome, right? So let me return a basic string welcome to REST API project, right? So this is my basic REST endpoint, right? So I'll run the application and I'll hit this endpoint from Postman, right? So let me go to I'm in the main class, right? So let me right click on this main class and let me run this code, right? So let me run this code. So my code has started. So let me now go to Postman and let me say I want to hit a get call, right. I want to hit a get call, and it won't be having any body. So let me say none, and let me mark request as slash welcome, right, slash welcome, right. So this is my get call. So in the controller you can see that this is marked as slash welcome, right. So let me hit this endpoint. So you can see that I get the output as welcome to REST API project. So the output is coming from this endpoint, right. So this is the basic, right. So a basic kind of an API where you can test your application, or if you are starting for the first time, you can expose your API like this, right. But now as we go ahead, we need that we should have a database connection. We should perform some operation with the database, and then we should return the data to the user, right. So now just to make it simple, I'll switch to a different package of controller, right. So let me remove this code from here, right. So let me remove this code from here, and let me remove the unused dependency, unused imports as well. So now let's go to a different package. So let me right click on it and let me make a new package. So if I say dot controller, right, and in the controller class, let me make a controller class, right. So REST API controller, right. So the basic thing is that you have to mark this as a REST controller, right. So you have to mark this as a REST controller, and you can remove the REST controller annotation from your main class now. So this will also be removed. Yes. So now my REST controller is ready, and let me put that method that I made in the main class here, right. So this is my method, right. So now let me save the code, and let me start my server again, and let me try to hit this endpoint again, right. So it should work the same, right. It should work the same. So let me start my server again. So let me say run as, yes, it has started to work. So let me hit this welcome API again. So you can see that the response is not changed, right. So it is same, right. So now let me advance on this, right. So first what we need is that we need to have a database dependencies, right. So we need to have the Postgres dependency and data JPA dependency enabled, right. So we have commented those, right. So let me enable those dependencies first, and let me enable this as well, right. So now as we have to make a database connection, and we have to perform we have to write some APIs where the operation with the database is performed, and some data is being returned to the user. So for that, first what we need is a model, right, an object that will be saved into the database. On that object we can perform different operations from the database. So what we'll do is we'll make a package of model first, right. So let me make a package of model. Let me say app model, and you can take any example in your model class. Let me take an example of let's say movies, right. So let me take an example of movies, right. So we have our class ready. So now my object is ready, right. I have made a class, so that's an object. But now you have to tell to your database that this is the object that needs to be saved into the database. So how you will say it, how you will enable that, okay, this object needs to be saved into the database. The Spring should know that this is your object that needs to be saved into the database. So how you will mark this class as that object? So you will mark this class as @entity, right. So you will say @entity, and then you will be @entity defines that, okay, this is the object that will be linked with the database, and this object needs to be saved into the database, right. So now you have to define that, okay, you have to make a table of this, right. So you have to make a table of this, and now you can either give the name or you can avoid also, right. So I'll give the name as movies, right? Now as we have given the name to the table, and we have also defined the entity. Now this object is ready to get saved, get any operations into the database, right? So the tables would be made into the database of movie, right? So now what content could be there in your object? First of all, let's take an ID, right? So let's take an ID and let's take name of the movie. Let me say string name, and then we can have the year of release, right? So we have these three things that we need to define into the database. So now we need the getters and setters of these. So let's go to the source and let's generate the getters and setters, right? So you can say select all and you can generate the getters and setters. So try and generating the getters and setters from the ID itself. Don't try to write the code for getters and setters, right? So now as we have the ID, so ID needs to be defined, right? So the strategy should be defined that, okay, this ID should be generated automatically, or there should be another significant another formula to generate the ID for this table. So let me mark that also. We'll say @ID, right? So we'll say Java X persistence ID, and then what we'll say is we'll say generated value, right? And in generated value we'll define strategy, right? We'll say that this is the strategy for generating the ID. So we'll say strategy equals generator type, dot, and these are the options that you can choose from. So I'll choose the auto option only, right? So now the IDs would be automatically generated, and then we have the name and year of the release, right? So our entity is ready, our model object is ready. Now what we need is we have the controllers, we have this. Now we need the connection with the database, right? So now this object is prepared, movies object is being prepared, but how we'll interact with the database? So we need a repository package. So let me define a repository package. You can also do all these things in a single package also, so that's not a problem. But it is very good approach that we define different things for different packages, right? So we need a repository package here, and we'll define a repository class. Let me say movie repo, right? So this is my movie repo. Okay, I have defined this as a class. I need it as an interface, right? So I need it as an interface, and let's say extends, we'll say JPA repository, right? So we need the object here, that object is movie and the ID is integer, right? So this is my repository ready. Now I don't need, right now I think that I don't need any methods. If needed, we can define methods here, right? So let me close the server and let me now go to the REST API controller, and let's write a few APIs, right? So let me say that, okay, I want to write an API for post mapping, that is for saving the data, right? So let me say save, right? And let me define a method here, and we can simply say that object or either we can simply return the movie object, and we can say save movie, right? As this is a REST API, so we are not getting the input from the UI, right? When we get the input from the UI, we define a model attribute, right? But now we are getting input from a REST endpoint, that is a postman. So we need to define it as a request body, right? So we'll get a request body, right? So we'll be accepting a movie object rather than a movie object. It is a best practices that don't expose your entity, right? So I would say that we will have a DTO object. So let me define a DTO object in my model package only. So let me say a new class and let me say it as movie DTO, right? Movie DTO, right? So what are things that movie DTO will consist of? Let me go, just these two things, right? So ID is an auto generated part, so we don't need that. So we need only these two things from the DTO, right? So let me say these two things and let me here define the getters and setters. Generate getters and setters, select all, and let me generate it. Right, so our getters and setters are also ready. So as you can see that there is no difference in the movie and movie DTO, just that the ID is not there and this movie DTO is not defined by @entity. So this object is a internal use object, right? Data transfer object. So it will take data from the endpoint, any endpoint, be it from UI, be it from REST endpoint, and then you can massage your data and you can save into your database, right? So this is how you can use the DTO. So I'll go to REST controller again and we'll accept movie DTO, right? So I'll say movie DTO, movie, right? So now we have to return a movie object, right? So simply what we can do is we can first auto wire our repository here. Let me auto wire my repository. My repository name was movie repository, right? So movie repo. So now I have to use the movie repo object. Now what we can do is, as we are accepting the DTO, now we have to convert that DTO into a movie object. So we have to define a movie object here. New movie. Right. So movie object has been defined. Let me say movie.set name. We'll get name from movie.get name, right? So we are getting the data from the DTO object and we are setting into our entity object now. So mv.set year of release and we'll say movie.get year of release, right? So we have set our data into the movie object. Now what we'll do is we'll simply say return movie repo dot save, right? And in the save we'll pass mv, right? So now it will save the object and it will return our object as an output. So now my endpoint is being made. So let me now start the server again and let me try with this endpoint, right? So let me start my server again. So what it is saying, okay. So now we have given the property, we have already enabled our Maven dependency from the pom.xml, but we haven't told Spring that which database we are using. Right, what are the properties of the database and what is the name of the database? So for that you have to add some properties in your application.properties, right? So let me add those properties in application.properties. So let me go to the resources folder and application.properties and let me add those properties. Right. So now I've added those properties, right? So let me define a database with the name test, or rather we can say REST, right? So let me define this database into my database of Postgres. Let me right click and let me say create database, right? So let me put my name here, REST, and let me save this. Right, so now database has been defined. Now if we start the server, it will automatically make our movie table in the database, right? So now database is connected. It is getting saved, right? So it is connected. So now let me go again on the main class, or rather I can start from here only. Right, you can see here that the create table has been fired and the table has been created. So if we go into the database as well, and let me expand on schemas, and let me go to the table section. So what we can see here is a movie table, right? A movie table has been defined. So now what we can do is we can go on our postman and let me say endpoint of save, right? And it's a post mapping. So let me define a post class, and we need a JSON, right? So I need a JSON. So what all things that are required? So let's go to the movie DTO and let's say that okay, the name is required and the year of release is required, right? So name is required. Name could be like Pathan, and the year of release could be like 2022, right? I don't know, it was in 2022 or not, I don't know. So let me send this request. So it says that okay, your data is being saved with an ID 1, right? So ID is 1 and the name is Pathan and the year of release is 2022. Now let's check also in the database that our data is saved or not. So let me go, and so now let me hit this select script from here, right? So now if you can see that okay, the data is saved in our database, so you can see that how the object has been prepared and returned to you, right? So there are requirements that there should be a kind of a formulated format of returning a response, right? There should be a data content that contains this data into a data content. Then there should be a message from that okay, the data is saved, etc, etc. And then there should be a status also, right? The request status also, right? So if we want to formulate the response, so how you can do that? So let me go to the controller class and let me first define a method, right? So let me define a method like let's formulate the, so let me say private, and we'll say response entity. So we'll say response entity and we'll be returning an object here. And what all we need is, let's say that generate output, right? So I'll say generate output, and what all we require, as I said that okay, user can put a message. So you can say a message could be there, and then user needs to needs an status code. So it has to pass a status also. So you can take HTTP status and you can pass the status here. And then what we need is we need the object, right? So the object could be the data, right? The data that we are saving. So we can say object, right? Object, and we can say it as movie, right? So movie. So we have defined an object. Now what we need, that we need to formulate a response. So let's make a hash map, right? So let's make a map, and it could be a string and an object, right? Map equals new hash map. So let me write a new hash map, right? So now what we have to do is we have to add all the things into the map, right? So we need to, let me go and use a put method here, and the key would be let's say the key would be a message, right? So let me select and say message, and we can put the message here, right? The user can send the message, so we can say message. And then we need to add the status of the request, right? So we need to add the status of the request. We'll say status, right? And we'll say st, right? So now we need to add the object, right? So we need to add the object. So object, the key to the object could be a data, right? So data, and you can simply put a movie object, right? So let me say movie, right? So now our map is ready. So what we need to return is return new response entity, right? So response entity, and then you can put in brackets, and you can say that okay, we want to have a map here, and we want to have a map here, and we want to have a status here, right? So let me say it as object, right? So let me say object, and we need a map and a status here. Say st, done, right? So now we can use this method to send our response, right? So let me save this, and we'll change the return type of this method. We can say response entity, and we can say object, right? So we can now it says that okay, now you have to change the type return also, right? So let's say movie and movies mvs equals this, right? So this is my object now. So let me put this here, and I can simply call method of generate, and you can copy from here, generate output, and put in some message, right? Some message could be your movies are saved now, right? So this could be a message, and then we need to send a status code. So you can say simply say https dot say http status dot okay, right? So it okay is a 200 code, and then you need to send the movie object, so you can simply send mvs, right? So this is how you can formulate your response. So this could be like if your request has been failing, right? So how you'll perform that operation. So what you have to do is you can also write an if condition here saying that mvs not equals null, right? So if it's not equals to null, then you have to send this, and else you have to send a different response, right? So select this, paste it here, and you can simply say your movies are not saved, right? And you can simply mark this as a bad request, right? And you can send the object that you have requested, right? So the requested object you have to return from here, right? So now let me save this, and let me simply say Control Shift F. Let me save this object. Now let me stop my server and start the server again, and let's see that how the response has been formulated. So let me start my server again. So the server is closed, right? Server is closed. Let me start my server again. So the server has started. Let's go to the Postman, and let's say some other movie, maybe Dhoom, right? I don't remember any other example, or you can say 2011, and let me send it. So now the response would be a little formulated kind of a response, right? So you can see that the status code has been sent, that okay, the status is okay, and your message is your movies are saved now, and the data is ID is 2, movie name is Dhoom, and the year of release is 2011, right? So I don't know the data is correct or not, but yes, I have taken a guess and put it here. So you can use this way to formulate the response with any other API, right? So if I say that I want to make another get mapping API, right? So get mapping would be get movies, right? And we can simply say public response. We can simply copy this, right? So we can copy this here, right? So we need this response, and we'll say get all movies, right? And we don't need anything from the request, right? So we can simply say we'll get a list of movies, right? So we'll get a list of movies. So you can define a list here, right? So you can define a list, Java util list, or rather I have defined it a different list. Yes, I have defined a different list. I need a util list. So let me define a util list, right? So util list has been defined, and we will be getting an object of movie, right? So what we can say simply is mv equals movie repo dot get or find all, right? So find all will return me a list of movies. Now what we have to do is we have to simply formulate our response. So we can simply say return, and we can copy from here, right? So let me copy from here and let me say mv, right? So simply you have to do this, right? So now if you fetch the data, then a different type of formulation would be done. So let me close my server again and let me start to hit this API, right? Fetch all, right? Let me copy this get movies, right? Let me start the server again. So let me now go to the Postman. The server is getting started, right? The server is getting started. Yes, the server is started. So let me now fetch the data. So this is my get request, and I don't have any parameter. So let me mark the body as none, and let me give this endpoint, right? So my endpoint is get movies, right? So if I send this request, the response will be like this, right? So the status is of okay, right? The request is 200, right? You can see the status here, and the message is your movies are saved now. So you can change the message, right? So I have copied that message only, so you can change that message that these are your movies, right? So these are your movies. So you can simply write this message here, and now you can see that in the data, as this was a list, so different objects are being returned. So this is my movie object 1, and then this is my movie object 2, right? So this is how you can work with REST APIs, and we have learned here that we can make a simple API also without the database connection, and then we can have a database connection and how you can formulate your response. So this was it from this video. Hope that you like, share and comment on the video, and show some support by subscribing the channel. Hope to see you in the next video. Till then, happy learning.